The kind of evening where the wind feels like it's carrying whispers of old regrets. I was standing in my apartment's small kitchen, heating up leftover soup, when my phone lit up. Mom. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it, a heaviness she was trying to hide. Hey, honey. I'm in town. Thought I'd stop by for a couple of days. Is that okay? It wasn't unusual for her to visit, but the timing felt strange. She never came unannounced. Of course, I said. I'll make up the guest room. By the time I opened the door, she was there, coat still buttoned, suitcase at her side. Her smile was warm, but her eyes, tired. The years had been kind to her face, but I could see shadows under her beauty now, like she had been fighting battles alone. She hugged me tightly. Thanks for letting me crash here, she said with a soft laugh, stepping inside. You don't need to thank me, I replied. This is your home too. We settled in the living room. She sat on the couch, hands wrapped around a mug of tea I'd made for her, staring into it as if the steam carried answers. I could tell something was wrong, but I didn't push. Later, while unpacking her things, she casually mentioned her job, her rent, and how life's been expensive lately. She didn't say it outright, but I understood, she was struggling. That night, as we watched an old movie together, I noticed how she kept glancing my way when she thought I wasn't looking. Not in a strange way, but as if she was trying to read me, maybe wondering how much I'd grown, or if I'd changed. I leaned back, thinking about how we had been through so much together after Dad left. She had been my rock when I had nothing else. But tonight, there was something different in the air. Before bed, she stood in the hallway, smiling faintly. Good night, honey, she said softly. Good night, Mom. But as I lay in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that this visit was going to change everything. Midway through the chapter, I'd normally insert the YouTube-style reminder. If you're still watching, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. It really helps us keep telling these real, raw stories. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the living room, but the warmth didn't seem to reach her eyes. She was already up when I came out of my room, sitting at the table with a notepad and pen, quietly scribbling numbers. Morning, I said, trying to sound cheerful. She glanced up and smiled, a small, polite smile, like the kind you give a stranger on the bus. Morning, honey. Coffee's on the counter. I poured myself a cup and sat across from her. The notepad caught my eye, rent due dates, grocery lists, little reminders. And then I saw it, a number circled twice at the bottom of the page. It was her monthly expenses, and I could see why she was stressed. You're behind? I asked softly. She set the pen down and leaned back in her chair. I'll manage, she said, her voice steady but tired. I've always managed. That was true. She had carried both of us for years after Dad walked out. She had worked double shifts, skipped meals, and never complained. But now, looking at her, I realized she was tired in a way I hadn't seen before, not just in her body, but in her spirit. We spent the day together, running small errands. At the grocery store, she put back little things she clearly wanted, her favorite tea, the expensive bread she used to buy, replacing them with cheaper alternatives. It hit me harder than I expected. That evening, we sat on the couch again, the same old movie still paused from the night before. She laughed at something I said, the kind of laugh that filled the room for a moment, and then her expression softened, almost wistful. You've grown into a good man, she said, her voice low. I didn't know what to say. The air between us felt loaded. Not in a bad way, but like there were words neither of us wanted to speak. Later, as I walked past her room to get some water, I saw her sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at an old photo in her hands. It was of us, me as a little boy, her holding me at a park. Her fingers brushed over the image slowly, like she was tracing a memory. When she noticed me, she smiled faintly and set the photo down. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted. She patted the space next to her on the bed. "Sit with me a minute." I did. And for a while, we just sat there, not speaking. The quiet wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't empty either. Midway reminder for the audience. If you're into stories that feel this real, don't forget to hit the like button, share, and subscribe. We've got more coming you won't want to miss. That night, I lay awake again, wondering why it felt like every small moment with her now carried a weight I couldn't explain. The following week felt different. Not because of anything either of us said out loud, but because of the little things. The way she lingered when talking to me, the way I noticed her more. One evening, she came home from work later than usual, her hair slightly messy, her coat draped loosely over her shoulders. She sighed when she stepped inside, the kind of sigh that let you know the day had taken more than it gave. "You okay?" I asked. She kicked off her shoes and set her purse on the counter. "Long day. Can't even remember the last time I ate." Without thinking, I got up and started making something, just pasta and garlic bread, simple but warm. She sat at the table, watching me. I could feel her eyes on me even when my back was turned. When I set the plate in front of her, she smiled in that way that made her look younger. "You didn't have to." "I know," I said, sitting down across from her. "But I wanted to." We ate mostly in silence. Every so often, our eyes met, and I felt that quiet pull again, the one I couldn't name but couldn't ignore. After dinner, she stayed in the kitchen with me while I cleaned up. She leaned against the counter, sipping tea, and we just talked. Not about bills or responsibilities, but about old memories. She told me about her first apartment, about how scared she'd been moving out on her own at 19. I told her about a time in high school when I almost quit football because I thought I wasn't good enough. The way she listened, it wasn't like talking to just anyone. She really heard me. Later, we ended up in the living room again, half watching TV. She was curled up in the corner of the couch, her legs tucked under her, wearing one of those oversized sweaters that made her look both cozy and fragile. At some point, she rested her head lightly on my shoulder. It was such a small thing, just a shift in weight, but I felt it like a spark. I didn't move. Neither did she. We stayed like that until the credits rolled. Midway audience reminder. If you're still here, you're feeling this story like I am. Go ahead and hit that like button, share it with someone who'd get it, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next turn. When she finally stood to go to bed, she paused in the doorway. "Thanks for dinner," she said softly. "And, for being here." I nodded, but inside, my chest felt heavier. Because the more I was there for her, the more I started wondering what being here really meant, and whether there was a line neither of us should cross, but both of us were standing too close to. It was raining that night, the kind of steady, tapping rain that makes the whole house feel smaller and quieter. I was in my room, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, when I heard her voice calling from downstairs. "Can you help me with something?" When I got to the living room, she was on the floor, a box of old family photos spread around her. The TV was off, the lights dim except for the warm glow of the table lamp. "I'm trying to organize these," she said, smiling faintly. "But I keep getting lost in the memories." I sat down next to her, cross-legged on the carpet. She handed me a stack. There were pictures of me as a kid, missing teeth, awkward haircuts, grinning like the world was mine. She laughed softly at some, then sighed at others. "You grew up so fast," she murmured. We kept going through them, shoulder to shoulder, our arms brushing now and then. It should have been nothing, but it wasn't. Every touch felt loaded. After a while, she leaned back against the couch, pulling her knees close. Her sweater slipped off one shoulder, and without thinking, I reached out to fix it. My hand hovered for a second too long before I pulled back. She noticed. I could see it in the way her eyes lingered on mine. We didn't speak for a moment. The rain filled the silence. Then she broke it. Sometimes I wonder what life would be like if certain things had been different. I frowned slightly. Different how? She hesitated, then shook her head, smiling like she was brushing away a thought she shouldn't say. Never mind. Just late-night talk. I didn't press her, but I couldn't stop wondering. We went back to sorting photos, but the air between us had shifted. It wasn't heavy, but it wasn't light either, it was charged. When we finished, she thanked me, but instead of standing up, she stayed sitting there beside me. Our knees touched. Neither of us moved away. Her voice was soft when she said, "You're easy to be around. You know that?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, the rain's rhythm in the background, and thought about how dangerously close we were to a place we couldn't come back from. Midway audience reminder. If this has you leaning in right now, don't forget to hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you're here when the next part drops. That night, when I went upstairs, I didn't sleep right away. I kept hearing her words. I kept feeling the space where our knees had touched. And I kept thinking, maybe some lines aren't crossed in one big step. Maybe they're crossed in 100 small ones, without you even noticing. It was late, well past midnight, when I heard a soft knock on my bedroom door. I wasn't asleep yet. My mind had been restless for days, and I knew exactly why. She stood there in the hallway, wearing a simple robe, her hair a little messy from sleep. "Sorry," she whispered, "I couldn't sleep." I sat up. "You okay?" She hesitated, then stepped inside. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air. She sat on the edge of my bed, pulling the robe tighter around her. "I've just been thinking a lot lately," she said, her eyes fixed on the floor. I leaned forward. "About what?" She finally looked at me, and there was something in her gaze I hadn't seen before, a mix of vulnerability and something else I couldn't quite name. "About us," she said quietly. The room felt smaller instantly. "Us?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded. "You've been more than helpful lately. You've been here in ways I didn't even know I needed." Her voice trembled slightly. "Sometimes I think, maybe I depend on you too much." I shook my head. "That's not a bad thing. We take care of each other." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty, it was heavy, filled with everything we weren't saying out loud. Her hand found mine on the bed. Not a casual touch, not an accident. It was warm, steady. "You've grown up into someone I can trust completely," she whispered. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles, slow, deliberate. My heart was pounding. I didn't pull away, but I also didn't move closer. I was caught between wanting to close the gap and fearing what that would mean. She smiled faintly, almost sadly. "I should go back to bed," she said, though she didn't let go of my hand right away. When she finally stood, she lingered in the doorway. "Good night," she said softly. I sat there long after she left, staring at the door, feeling the ghost of her touch on my skin. That night, I realized something. This wasn't just about help, or care, or even family anymore. This was about a connection, one we couldn't ignore forever. YouTube CTA. If you've been following this story from the start, you know we've reached the moment where everything is about to tip over the edge. Hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe, you won't want to miss what comes next.